The sun slips through half-open blinds, lighting the tiny kitchen in soft gold. Mira sits at the table, her fingers wrapped around a mug of untouched coffee. She doesn't look up, neither does Adil. The air is heavy with unspoken words. Adil scrolls through his phone, his thumb moving endlessly. Mira taps her spoon against the cup. Once, twice, just to break the silence. He doesn't notice. She lowers her eyes and forces a faint smile that no one sees. The fridge hums, the clock ticks. They've done this every day, same time, same silence, same distance. Mira once loved mornings. Now they just remind her how far apart they've grown. Her eyes drift to the fridge. Old sticky notes still there. Don't forget your smile. The ink has faded, but the memories haven't. She remembers when he used to write those. Adil mumbles something about work. She nods before even hearing what he said. Their conversations have become background noise, something to fill space, not to connect. The ticking clock grows louder. Mira swallows the urge to speak, to ask, "Are we okay?" But she already knows the answer. Silence is their only language now. She finally sips her coffee. It's gone cold. She frowns, not because of the taste, but because she realizes it's been sitting there for 30 minutes, just like her thoughts. Mira looks up, hoping to catch his eyes, but Adil's gaze is locked on his screen. For a second, she wonders if he'd notice if she just left. Her lips part. She wants to say something. Anything. "How was your night? Are you okay?" But she closes them again. She's tired of starting conversations that never go anywhere. Adil stands up, his chair scraping the floor. A sharp sound in the quiet room. "I'm running late," he says, grabbing his keys without looking back. The door shuts. Mira sits still. The hum of the refrigerator fills the silence he left behind. She stares at the empty chair, wondering when love turned into routine. After a long pause, she whispers softly, "We used to talk about everything." Her voice breaks the silence for the first time, and it sounds strange, like she's forgotten how. Back then, mornings were filled with laughter. Mira burned the toast again, and Adil teased her with a grin. She threw a napkin at him and he caught it midair. Adil poured her coffee just the way she liked. Too sweet. She pretended to hate it, but she always finished every drop. It was their quiet language, love without words. Every morning before work, Adil left her small sticky notes. "Smile today. Dinner's on me." Mira saved each one like tiny pieces of sunshine. Music played from an old speaker. She was cooking. He joined her from behind, and they swayed like it was their own private world. The air smelled of warmth and love. They stayed up until 2 a.m., talking about everything, dreams, fears, silly jokes. Words flowed easily back then. Silence never stood between them. On rainy days, they'd sit by the window, wrapped in one blanket, watching droplets race down the glass. Sometimes they didn't need to talk. Their closeness was enough. They didn't need fancy restaurants. Late drives, street food, old songs playing from the car speakers, those were the real dates. Simple, imperfect, but beautiful. At night, Mira would tell him about her dream bakery, and Adil would say, "I'll be your first customer." Felt like the world was theirs. He remembered her favorite snacks. She remembered his bad jokes. They were never perfect, but they tried, and that made all the difference. Every photo, every laugh, they believed this was forever. They never imagined silence could replace this sound. Years later, those photos still sit on the fridge. But the faces behind them are gone, replaced by strangers who forgot how to smile together. Mira blinks back to the present. The same kitchen, same fridge, but no laughter now. The memories sting because they were once a delayed text, a forgotten goodnight. Mira told herself he was just busy, but her heart knew better. Adil began staying late at the office. "Just one more meeting," he'd say. But one meeting became many, and Mira's dinners grew cold waiting for him. Every evening, Mira sat by the window watching headlights pass. Each car made her hope it was his, until she realized she was waiting for a version of him that no longer existed. She used to write long texts, updates, jokes, love notes. Now she just stared at the typing box, then locked her phone. Silence had become safer than being ignored. The table once filled with laughter now held just one plate. Mira ate quietly, the ticking clock louder than her heartbeat. When Adil came home late, he always said, "Traffic was bad." She nodded, though she'd stopped believing long ago. His tired smile no longer reached his eyes. One night, after he went to bed, Mira sat on the couch and let silent tears fall. Not from anger, but from the ache of being unseen by someone who once saw everything. "Are you okay?" he asked one morning. "I'm fine," she said, forcing a smile. Both of them knew it was a lie, but neither dared to tell the truth. She planned a simple dinner, his favorite meal. He never came. When he finally called, he said he forgot. Mira laughed softly, but her eyes didn't. At night, they lay side by side, but it felt like oceans stretched between them. Even breathing felt synchronized out of habit, not love. Mira looked at herself in the mirror. Tired eyes, fading spark. She whispered, "When did love start feeling like loneliness?" That night, she didn't cry or speak. She just stared into the quiet and made a silent promise. "If he won't come back to me, I'll come back to myself." This past midnight, Mira lies in bed, phone glowing softly in the dark. She scrolls through perfect photos, smiling couples, vacations, anniversaries. Her thumb pauses. None of it feels real anymore. She wants to write something, not a complaint, not a cry for help, just something true. The kind of truth that hides behind quiet smiles. Her fingers move almost on their own. The less you share, the more peace you find. She hits post before she can change her mind. The screen goes black. Silence fills the room again. Within minutes, the screen lights up. Comments, likes, messages. "You okay? What happened? Is everything fine with Adil?" Mira sighs. They always want the story, never the truth. She catches her reflection in the dark window. For a second, she doesn't recognize herself. Not the woman who once laughed for no reason. Not the woman who used to be full of light. Adil sees the post while sipping his coffee. His brows furrow. "Why do you post things like that?" he asks flatly. "It's just a quote," she replies softly. "People will think we're having problems." "Maybe we are." The air freezes. He doesn't reply. He leaves the table, grabs his keys, and walks out. The sound of the door closing feels louder than his words ever did. Mira stares at her phone again. She scrolls up to her post and whispers, "I didn't mean to hurt you." But deep down, she knows the post wasn't about him. It was about her pain. Friends text, neighbors gossip, relatives call. Everyone wants answers. No one offers peace. Mira deletes the app, craving quiet more than sympathy. That night, she sits by the window again. The world outside moves fast. Cars, laughter, lights. Inside, everything stands still. For the first time, she wonders, when did my voice stop belonging to me? She picks up a notebook and writes, "People want stories, not feelings. I want peace, not attention." The pen trembles, but her hand doesn't stop. Mira closes the journal, places her phone face down, and whispers, "From now on, I'll keep some things just for me." It's not anger, it's accept. The house felt different that morning. Heavy, quiet, almost waiting. Mira stood by the sink, washing a single cup. Adil entered, his footsteps sounding sharper than usual. "You deleted the post," he said flatly. "Yes." "Why did you post it in the first place?" Mira didn't answer. She kept drying the same cup again and again, as if it held her calm. "Are you trying to make people think I'm the problem?" His voice wasn't loud, just cold. That kind of tone hurts more than shouting. "It wasn't about you," she whispered. "Then who was it about?" She looked at him, eyes tired. "It was about me. About how I feel." He said nothing, just stood there, jaw tight, staring at her like she was a stranger. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence like an unwanted witness. She turned to put the cup down, her hands trembling slightly. She hated this, not the fight, but the emptiness it left behind. Adil moved toward the door. For a moment, he stopped and said quietly, You used to tell me everything. And you used to listen, she replied. Neither looked back. He left without breakfast. The sound of the door closing felt heavier than usual, like something ending quietly, without ceremony. Mira sat down at the table, the chair opposite empty again. She stared at the untouched cup and thought about how love doesn't end loudly. Sometimes, it fades one quiet argument at a time. Later that day, she smiled for a neighbor who asked how she was. I'm fine, she said, the easiest lie in the world. That night, she wrote, we don't fight with words anymore. We fight with silence, and silence always wins. She closed the journal before tears could fall. In bed, she turned to the side, facing the wall. The other side of the bed was cold, untouched. Outside, the city moved. Inside, time stood still. Morning light filled their apartment, but warmth didn't. Mira made breakfast quietly. Adil grabbed his files without a word. They moved around each other like ghosts, together, yet alone. Sometimes, she thought about asking, how was your day? But he'd already be on his phone, nodding absently. Their words now floated unspoken, like dust in sunlight. They still sat at the same table, but the seats felt miles apart. Adil ate quickly. Mira barely touched her food. The only sound, the clinking of spoons against plates. You look tired, he said flatly one evening. So do you, she replied. That was their first conversation in days, and it hurt more than silence. Mira walked past the fridge. The old sticky notes were still there. She ran her fingers over the faded ink and smiled sadly. Love had been written once. Now it was erased by time. Nights were quiet. He watched TV in the living room. She scrolled her phone in bed. Their laughter used to fill the apartment. Now only the sound of flickering screens remained. When he finally came to bed, Mira pretended to be asleep. She faced the window, breathing evenly. Sometimes, she felt him turn away too. A silent agreement of avoidance. In the bathroom mirror, Mira caught her reflection. Weary eyes, pale skin, hair loosely tied. This isn't the woman I used to be, she whispered. Before, they never slept without saying goodnight. Now, lights turned off without words. The dark became their new language. One night, when he was asleep, Mira covered her mouth and cried quietly. She wasn't angry. She was mourning something still alive but no longer breathing. That night, she wrote, we don't fight with words anymore. We fight with silence, and silence always wins. She closed the journal before tears could fall. When silence returned, she stood in the living room, listening. It was the same home they built together, but now it echoed like an empty shell. The city was soaked in silver rain. Mira walked quickly under her umbrella, raindrops tapping like tiny reminders of time passing. She hadn't been outside alone in weeks. She entered a small cafe she hadn't visited in years. The same one she and Adil used to love. The bell above the door jingled softly, like a memory she wasn't ready to face. She ordered her favorite drink, cappuccino extra foam. The warmth of the cup felt unfamiliar against her cold hands. For the first time in months, she felt something gentle. Mira? She looked up and saw Sarah, an old college friend, smiling with surprise. The last time they met, Mira was newly married, glowing, full of plans. At first, they talked about safe topics, work, weather, life. But Sarah noticed the quiet in Mira's voice, the kind that only comes from carrying too much. Finally, Mira sighed and said softly, I feel like I'm living next to my husband, not with him. Her voice didn't break. It simply felt heavy, like something long overdue. Sarah reached across the table and said, You gave too much of yourself to someone who stopped noticing. That's not love's fault, that's neglect. Mira's eyes glistened, not from pain but recognition. They sat in silence for a while, the sound of rain outside wrapping them in calm. Sometimes healing doesn't come from words, but from being understood. As Sarah left, Mira lingered near the window. She looked at her reflection. Tired, older, but still there. For the first time, she saw herself clearly. She walked home without her umbrella open, letting the rain touch her skin. Each drop felt like something washing away. Not her sadness, but her denial. At home, Mira stood before her mirror. No makeup, no filter, just herself. "I forgot who I was," she whispered. "But I think I'm starting to remember." A faint smile appeared, small but real. It wasn't happiness yet, but it was hope. And sometimes that's enough to begin again. The apartment was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Mira stood in the kitchen, barefoot, her hair slightly messy. The quiet felt final, like the pause before goodbye. On the bed lay a half-packed suitcase. Clothes folded neatly. Not rushed, not emotional, just calm. This wasn't escape. It was release. She found an old photo, the two of them laughing in that same kitchen years ago. For a moment, she almost changed her mind. But the pain in her chest reminded her why she couldn't stay. She sat at the dining table, pen trembling slightly, and began to write. The words didn't flow easily. They came with quiet strength. "We stopped talking long before we stopped loving. I tried to reach you, but silence answered louder than you ever did." Her handwriting wavered, but her heart felt steady. "I'm not leaving because I hate you. I'm leaving because I love myself too." It was the truest sentence she had ever written. She placed the letter gently on the wooden table beside his untouched coffee cup. No tears, no drama, just a message waiting in silence. Before leaving, she stood in the doorway and looked around. The couch where they laughed, the bed where they turned away, the home they built and lost. She placed her house key next to the note, a simple symbol of endings. No sound, no gesture, just quiet acceptance. She didn't slam the door. She closed it softly, as if not to wake the memories sleeping inside. Outside, the air felt different, lighter. Mira inhaled deeply, feeling the rain-kissed breeze against her skin. For the first time in years, she felt like she was breathing for herself. As she walked down the quiet street, the world didn't change. But she had. The weight she carried was gone. Adil came home later than usual. The sun had already set, and the apartment was wrapped in dim orange light. Everything felt too quiet, even for them. He dropped his keys on the counter. The usual smell of dinner wasn't there. No sounds, no movement, just still air and the faint hum of the refrigerator. His eyes fell on the coffee mug, hers. Steam long gone cold. Something about it felt wrong, misplaced, lonely. Then he saw it, a folded piece of paper beside the mug. His name written softly across it in her familiar handwriting. His chest tightened. He sat down, opened it, and read. "We stopped talking long before we stopped loving." He froze. The words felt like echoes of things he'd never dared to admit. Each sentence hit harder than the last. "I'm not leaving because I hate you. I'm leaving because I love myself too." For the first time, Adil realized her silence wasn't coldness. It was pain. He remembered her laughter, her sticky notes, the mornings they danced. The memories flooded in, bright, then suddenly gone. He walked into their bedroom. The bed looked untouched, her side perfectly made. A half-open drawer revealed the emptiness she left behind. He whispered, "You should have told me," then paused, realizing she had, countless times, in silence, in tears, in looks he never noticed. Adil sat on the floor, letter still in his hand. The silence that once comforted him now screamed louder than any argument ever could. He checked his phone, no message, no call, no sign. She had left him exactly the way he had treated her. Quietly. He looked around their home. It was all still there. But she wasn't. And in that silence he finally heard her. All the words she never said. Adil drove in silence. The road blurred before his eyes as memories replayed. Her laughter. Her quiet tears. The note. The only sound was the rain tapping on his windshield. He stopped outside a small house with white curtains. Mira's sister's home. He hesitated for a long moment before stepping out. His hands were trembling. He pressed the bell. The familiar chime echoed softly. For a moment he wished she wouldn't answer. It would be easier that way. Mira opened the door. No anger. No tears. Just quiet surprise. Her eyes held both recognition and distance. She had changed. I didn't mean for this to happen, he said softly. I know, she replied. Her voice was calm, not cold. It wasn't bitterness anymore, just truth. They sat in the small living room. The air smelled like tea and rain. Neither spoke for a while. They didn't need to. The silence this time wasn't sharp. It was peaceful. I stopped listening, Adil finally said. I thought silence meant comfort. I didn't know it meant pain. Mira looked down. You learned it too late, but at least you learned. He continued, I kept waiting for you to speak louder. I never realized you were already screaming in silence. Her eyes softened. I was tired of explaining how it felt to be unheard. There were no accusations, no tears, only acceptance. They had loved once. They had also failed each other. Both were true. I hope you find peace, she said gently. He nodded, voice trembling. I think you already have. They smiled faintly, the kind of smile that says goodbye without saying it. Adil walked back into the rain. This time, the silence didn't feel cruel. It felt deserved. He had finally understood what it meant. From inside, Mira watched him leave. No pain this time, only peace. She turned to her sister's window and saw her reflection. Strong, calm, free. Had passed. The seasons changed. Life quietly rearranged itself. Mira found peace in small things. Sunlight, books, morning walks. She didn't miss him every day anymore. One day, she returned to that same cafe where everything had shifted. The same wooden tables, the same rain outside, but she was different now. Across the room, she saw Adil. Time had softened him too. Fewer words, humbler eyes. He looked up, surprised but gentle. She gave a small nod. He returned it. Neither moved for a moment, but something unspoken passed between them. Not love, not pain, just peace. He walked over, hesitant but calm. May I? He asked. Of course, she said. For the first time, their voices didn't shake. They ordered tea, not coffee. Mira smiled faintly. You always hated tea. He chuckled softly. Maybe I've changed. It was simple, human, real. Adil looked down for a moment before saying, You look happy. Mira smiled gently. That's what peace looks like. There was no pride in her tone, just quiet truth. He nodded. I thought I'd lost everything when you left, but I think you just made me realize what I never gave. She nodded softly. We both learned something. That's enough. They shared a small smile, the kind that ends a story without needing words. No bitterness, no longing. Just gratitude for what was and peace for what would never be again. Mira stood first. Take care, Adil. He smiled gently. You too. No hugs, no tears. Just a respectful silence that said everything. As she stepped outside, the rain had stopped. The streets glistened under the soft glow of sunset. She didn't look back. Some chapters close only when you stop rereading them. Adil watched her go, then looked at the empty chair across from him. He smiled faintly and whispered, She found her peace, and for the first time so did he. The sun poured gently into Mira's new apartment, small, quiet, filled with plants and books. The kind of peace she once begged for now lived with her every morning. She brewed her own tea, hummed softly, and watered her plants. Every action felt peaceful, like tiny prayers to herself. On her small desk sat her laptop, open to a project she loved. Work no longer felt like escape, it felt like growth. She smiled quietly as she typed. Beside her was a leather-bound journal, the same one she started when everything fell apart. Today, she opened it again, ready to write the ending. Peace isn't found in perfect love. It's found when you stop begging to be understood. She smiled after writing it, not with pride, but with relief. She looked up from her writing and saw her reflection in the window, calm, soft, whole. It was strange to recognize herself again. An old photo of her and Adil rested inside the drawer. She took it out, looked at it, and whispered, Thank you for the lesson. Then she placed it back, gently without pain. That evening, she took a walk through a nearby park. Children played, couples laughed. The air smelled like peace. She wasn't lonely anymore. She was alone, and that was different. Her phone buzzed. A message from Sarah. "Dinner tonight?" She smiled and typed back, "Would love to." It was simple, natural connection without need, friendship without burden. She looked up at the sky as it turned gold and pink. Life was quiet but full again, not because someone loved her, but because she finally did. That night, she wrote one last page. Not everyone who stays gives you peace. Sometimes, leaving is how you learn to love yourself again. She closed the journal and exhaled, complete. As she turned off the light and lay down, her room was silent. But this silence was different. It wasn't emptiness anymore. It was...
Thank you for watching till the end. Your love and support mean everything to us. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss any of our new stories and updates. And if you enjoyed this journey, comment below and let us know. Your feedback inspires our next big story.